Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bucs Bounty alongside Kevin Young. My name is Stephen Brault. Thank you for joining us here. We just got back from a road trip. KY, you were with the team on the road trip. 6 games against the Diamondbacks and the Giants. You end up splitting, going 3-3. You win the first series. You lose the second one. That last game was a heartbreaker in San Francisco. That's a tough one to lose there in the 12th inning.
On getaway day.
On getaway day, I know. I was thinking about that. Literally, you watch the game, and while the game's going on, I'm thinking to myself, like, man, this could be such a happy flight or such a sad flight. Ends up being a sad flight. It's too bad. But overall, what'd you see from the team when you're out there?
Well, like you said, the two teams, Arizona, obviously, and San Francisco, both of those clubs aren't playing their best baseball right now. So you go into that whole road trip thinking 4-2 would be a good thing to do, if not more. So a little disappointing in that aspect of it because, but all in all, you saw some really good things. Our starting pitching was really good. You saw some of the acquisitions do what they've done. Brandon Lau was just one of those guys. So, it was just a really good time to watch those guys continue to find their way through the first quarter of the season, if you will. So I'm sure we'll get into that here shortly. But it was just a nice all the way around watching guys come back after adversity immediately after losing game 1 in Arizona, how they responded. I think that says a lot about who this ball club is.
Yeah, so you get the Diamondbacks and you get the Giants, and now you come home and you got the Rockies for 3. So you're getting the whole NL West thing going on. But let's talk about that. The first quarter of the season is now over, and the Pirates have been playing pretty well. You're 3 games over 500. There's been some really good stretches. But mostly, KY, it's been like so much win-lose, 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 right? There hasn't been a lot of streaks going on with the Pirates. And in a way, that's a good thing because it shows that you're never going. The problem is you're never hitting those heights, right? We still haven't seen that very often other than the beginning of the year when they had that 5-game winning streak. So far, though, the team's been playing pretty well. You have exactly what you thought would happen. Starting pitching has been great. The offense has been much better, but questionably, the bullpen has been a struggle for the Pirates, especially recently. But let's start with the starting pitching staff, okay? Right now, they're just doing great overall, okay? That from the top to the bottom, Skeens has been Skeens. Keller has been even better than we've seen in past years. However, he's always been pretty good in the first half, so it's about how we can see him continue into that second half. But Chandler's been struggling a little bit, but man, Ashcraft has been a star in this rotation. And so for me, I'm just curious what you have seen from the starting rotation. Maybe anybody that surprised you or made you think, hey, we really got something going here.
Well, I'll take it a step back. You think about last year when we broke camp, right? I mean, you had Andrew Heaney and you had Bailey Falter that were in that rotation. Right. And basically what you've done is you replaced those guys with 2 younger pitchers, obviously Bubba Chandler and Braxton Ashcraft. And so you do have a young pitching staff. You really do. If you think about it, Mitch Keller is truly the vet. He's thrown more innings pitched than all 4 of our other starting pitchers. So think about that in concept. And
Skeens is still young.
Yes.
We pretend he's not, but he is.
You think about a starting pitching, you think about the first quarter of the season, the starting pitching has been a big key, obviously, to that record. Being 3 games over 500 right now, you'd have to take that as a big plus. Knowing, understanding of what we have. And they've led the way. They've really been good. I think Braxton Ashcraft, he's been one of my favorite pitchers to watch for a while. He really is because he can do so many things, and the confidence he holds on that mound, throwing that rubber. He's just electric. He can get you out with his spin. He can get you out with that fastball. And he's not afraid of anybody.
His mantra is my favorite I've ever heard. I'm going to suffocate guys with strikes. Yes. And he says it all the time, and you can tell he truly believes it. Hey. His last start, he threw like 82 pitches in 7 innings and threw 60 strikes. Obviously he believes it.
Walk it like you talk it.
Exactly, and that's exactly what he's been doing there. So now you got the starting rotation, 5th in ERAs, 8th in runs allowed in Major League Baseball, right? And like you said, this is a young rotation. Also, bears worth repeating, all Pirates guys brought up in the Pirates organization. So that kind of just puts a little exclamation mark on the fact that these are all homegrown guys as well that are going to be around for a little while. True. Okay, so here's my question for you. We're going to kind of skip ahead. Since we went backwards, let's go forward. Is this the kind of rotation, especially when Jared Jones comes back, is this the kind of rotation that we're going to be, 3 years from now, it's still the same guys as long as everybody stays healthy? Because you don't see that very often.
You do not. And like I said, you always compare this group, maybe prematurely a little bit, but to the Braves of the 90s. That pitching staff, because a lot of them were homegrown. They added Greg Maddux. to the mix. And so, but when you have guys that are like that, they're able to learn from one another. They're able to each start. It's like that healthy competition. They communicate really well together, as you know. I think those are some of the things you look forward to doing. I mean, it's that part of who's going to be that next guy to step up. And I know, like we shared before, Carmen Majinski is what he's been able to do on the mound has been electric. Has been, like you mentioned, Jared Jones is coming back at some point. Pretty rest assured he's going to come back in that same capacity as a starter. And so, what does that mean? Does him coming back allow our bullpen to get even stronger, depending on what happens there? So, a lot of things to discuss over the next 4 weeks, internally with the Pirates. I think it'll be some difference makers. But like you said, I just think that these guys are really they're really primed up to be really good for a long period of time. And already I can tell you a lot of opposing teams do not care to face any part of our rotation right now. So it's pretty fun to watch.
Well, the thing about this series against the Rockies coming up, you got Skeens, Keller, and Ashcraft, right? And if you're the Rockies, you got to be looking at that and saying there is no break here. You're hoping that maybe one of them has an off day, because if they're on, they are all so good and they're dominant. They're dominant when they're good. And that's, I think, what kind of sets this apart. Mitch Keller is generally not considered a number 2, right? He's honestly been more of a 3-4 type starting pitcher, but he's been so consistent. A 4.1 to 4.15 ERA over the last 3 years. He's had a ton of innings, right? And that's what you need out of a guy who's a 3-4 starter. But it's like this year, he wants everybody to remember, like, no. I've been here the longest. Exactly. I am an elite pitcher, and that's what we're seeing. He doesn't want to be left behind.
No doubt.
Okay, so curveball at you. When Jones comes back, I know you don't want Skeens starting every 6 days. You want him pitching as much as possible. But a lot of these guys are still doing buildup. Is there any use in going to a 6-man rotation, if even only for a little while during this season, to kind of give all those guys a break?
I mean, it's a thought. Me personally, I mean, I'm just going to be quite honest. As much as it bothers me to say it, I've always felt I have a ton of respect for Carmen Majinski and his ability to pitch, his desire to be a starter. I think, that is hands down for him. I want it to be that way. You never want to move a guy from, but I also look at where our hiccups are in the first quarter of the season, and it is in the bullpen. And I know Carmen Majinski, I know what he can bring. We've become a better team when he's in our bullpen. I believe that. Like I said, it may be a toss-up. Who knows? I mean, it could be Bubba Chandler or whoever with Jared Jones was replacing in that starting rotation. It's a real question that we're going to have to really go into. But it's coming. It's coming. And so, but right off, if you're thinking about how do we, the second quarter, start building some momentum and start putting streaks together, where do we lack in the first quarter? It was the middle of the in the bullpen. That in the middle of the game, what can we do there? So I think we become possibly a better starting pitching team and a better middle relief if and out of the bullpen if we make that move. But we'll see. We'll see. It's just a tough one because I have a ton of respect for Carmen, his desire to compete and everything. It's just, man, starting pitching role is, you hate to see a guy lose his position due to injury. That's what I get back to.
Right, yeah.
That's what always comes down to me.
Well, the funny thing is when you go from bullpen to starting, a lot of times, I did that a lot, and it can be difficult, but Carmen Majinski has always did it so well. And so that's another thing that's hard to it's hard to separate that because you want the player to be in the best spot mentally he can be in. Right. And let's be honest, you're not going to be in the best spot mentally if you feel like when the guy comes back, you just get booted to the bullpen, right? And that's the truth.
I agree.
But
you can always say, hey, we'll give you a 2-year deal right now. Exactly. We always have ways that we can work around,
It's funny because, you talk about a lot of times that's when it goes into arbitration, right? Starts are worth so much more money in arbitration than anything else. And that's just the truth.
Like I said, I love the kid. I think he's a fighter. He balls out. And so I don't want it for him personally but at the same time, when you think about winning and doing what makes this a better ball club, if we want to win this year and do some big things, I think that's where our area is to grow on both sides.
Unfortunately, somebody has to take that sacrifice.
But so I will say this: so with all that being said, if I were to grade out the first quarter, I give us a B- only because of where we were in the bullpen. Because I feel like we've lost a handful of games, literally like 5, games where, yeah, that have been, and that's the only reason. That's the minus. Like I said, other than that, it's the B. We are a solid B for our first quarter of the season, and I thought with what I said, all the changes that were made, you have a new group coming in, a lot of new faces in the starting lineup, a lot of new faces, in our starting pitching rotation. And so all that stuff really does give you an opportunity to learn where those mistakes were, and more importantly, bounce back from them towards the second quarter.
We talked to those guys about your changeup. Can you tell us about how you develop that? Is that something you tinker with often?
Oh yeah, minor leagues, just each level, I've thrown it more and more. Got to AA and it was like, all right, like I need a pitch to kind of get me out of stuff, kind of get me sync back up, and that's the changeup for me. It's like when I'm kind of spraying it with the fastball, slider, like whatever. Like changeup is my kind of get back pitch. Like it just syncs the body up. Like for whatever reason, but it does. I think last year in Indy, all those guys like, hey, like look, man, you're close to the big leagues. Like you probably need to start getting used to this pitch. Like it's gonna be a good pitch. And so in Indy last year, I started throwing it, and that was just kind of a nice confidence boost. And came back into this year, with a lot of confidence with it. And I do have the command with it, which is nice. But yeah, and then up here in the big leagues, like it's got good results. So yeah, but yeah, it's definitely a pitch that it's a field pitch.
Catch the next Bucs BP show presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh.
Offense then, 5th in runs scored this year in Major League Baseball. That's an immediate turnaround, right? I mean, it's such a big difference from what we saw last year when the offense really struggled to score runs.
Right.
That's what it all came down to. It was that simple. The offense didn't score enough runs, right? And so everything that goes around, you can go into the numbers and break them down. There's sometimes when it comes to individual players, it's really fun to really break out the tiny little, oh yeah, against lefties, you did this, against righties. Okay, that's fun because you can work with matchups and everything. When it comes to the team, what matters the most? Who scores more runs, right?
And we've been able to do that. So the biggest number, we talked about this last year. What was the one number runs per game that we really wanted to get to? It was 4. Well, we're averaging 5 runs a game right now. So that'll tell you why we're at 3 games over 500. So our run differential is way better than it ever has been over the last several years. And it's because of those acquisitions that we acquired, like you said, even though Ozuna trade, acquiring Ozuna, obviously with Mangum, and then Lau, you can't say enough about him, which we'll get to him because he was pretty special. And just O'Hearn, what he's been able to do, the professional at-bats that these guys put together that create the type of depth you need in your lineup on an everyday basis. I think that's why you're sitting there with 5 runs scored a game. And it's a big boost to a pitching staff that really doesn't give up many.
No, you know what's funny? So I'll give you one stat that I found really interesting going and looking into the Pirates offense so far. They're 5th in Major League Baseball in walks.
Yes.
Okay, so a team that historically has not hit much for power adds a few guys who come in who hit for more power, right? So O'Hearn's not a huge power guy, but he hit 15 last year. He's hit 17 in the season. Obviously, Marcell Ozuna has got a ton of power. He's still kind of finding it now. We're seeing that a little bit more often. And Brandon Lau just hits home runs. That's what he does, okay, right? So you add all that power in, and that's great, but it really doesn't make that much of a difference if you're not getting people on base.
True.
And the Pirates have been able to hit pretty well. Nick Gonzalez has been hitting like crazy. But when it comes to just getting people on base, I think the Pirates have done a really good job of making pitchers come to them.
They really have. I mean, it's been blatantly obvious. Like, if you think about this last road trip, I mean, one of the games I remember looking at, we were 10 for 22 with runners in scoring position. And the only number that stood out to me was the 22. That's a big number.
Huge number.
I mean, those are the type of things that you see on a more of a consistent level now where you're getting the opportunities. A lot of times we went through a little slump where we aren't driving in runs. Road trip was a big part of it. I mean, our road games, we weren't scoring a lot early on in that last road trip. But you find a way to get runners out there. Eventually the hit comes, and we've done a pretty good job of doing that. And I think all those things, as we said before, are a big component of why you get those 5 runs a game, why you went out to acquire. And Ben Cherington and the rest of the staff, they did a good job of acquiring the type of players that we needed. Obviously, we'd like to see some more quality at bats, against right-hand pitching. But these guys are going to continue to do what they can to put runners out in there and get them in.
Okay, so this is something I always find interesting because the Pirates they've done something different this year in that they are always, it seems like always getting guys into scoring position. And so really their numbers with guys in scoring position is not that great.
Right.
But they're doing it so often. Like you said, you get 22 chances in a game, you're probably going to win that game. You should win that game, really. And we've seen it. So this year, the Pirates twice have had 10 hits in a single game with runners in scoring position. There's only been one other team that's done it once. Okay, so you're getting a lot of guys on base. The consistency of getting the hits with those guys on base is obviously going to be the determining factor on if you're actually going to score a bunch of runs and win a bunch of games. But we've had 2 games over the last week where the Pirates scored over 10 runs without hitting a single home run. Right? And so that means you're getting a bunch of guys on base and you're eventually driving people in. Can you do it consistently? Can you do it every day?
Okay, so this road trip is a perfect example of it. So to your point, though, if you have guys where we don't have a lot of runners and we didn't hit well with runners in scoring position, but what do we have now that we didn't have before was the long ball.
True.
Right? Yeah. So, you don't have to have a guy on second or third if you got a guy on first. And, you're hitting a homer, So, those are the type of things that you got to experience this road trip, different ways that we can win. We can win one game because we have really good starting pitching and we have a back end that's pretty good that can keep the other opposing teams down, right? And so we can find creative ways to continue to do until those bats come to life. Because I'm be quite honest, and when late May, June, July come, the balls are going to start jumping out their yard. Sure. And that's when you'll really get to see what this ball club is really capable of doing. But until then, find those different ways to contribute. I always talk about the bottom third of the lineup. That's a big part of it. And now, obviously, having Connor Griffin down at the bottom, he creates another opportunity for you to produce some runs and flip the lineup over as well. So there's a lot of different things that we can continue to learn from this first quarter of the season that we can, again, grow on in the second and start picking up the pace so we can put together that 5, 6, 7-game winning streak because the Cubs doesn't seem like they want to slow down.
Man, they score a lot of runs. Okay, let's go now to a little specific part of that offense, Oneil Cruz. Okay, so Oneil Cruz has been 2 different guys so far this year. He was one of the best players in baseball for the first month, and then he really fell off for a while. Okay, so we've seen Oneil Cruz do this. We know he's going to go through these valleys because he's also going to have those peaks that are just unbelievable. But still, at this point, 10 home runs, 15 stolen bases this early in the season. Obviously, you got to be pretty happy with where you're at numbers-wise in that. But the OPS down around 790 because it was up in the mid to high 900s for a while there. With Oneil Cruz now kind of looks like he's starting to work out of that slump. We got to see a little bit more production out of him in San Francisco. Love seeing the opposite field home run. Whenever we see Oneil Cruz go opposite field with a home run, he's starting to get back into it. What have you seen from Cruz this year that maybe is different from years before? And do you think that number, let's say it's at 790 right now, do you think that number is going to go up? Or do you think that number is going to stay the same or go down by the time we get to September?
I believe the number will go up. And I think a big part of it is because obviously his ability to have quality at bats against left-handed pitching for a reason. He put in all that work to make sure that he addressed that issue in the offseason. It's paid him dividends the first part of the season. And I do believe that also that same approach that he has is allowing him to take the ball the other way more consistently. The one issue that I think that we all can probably recognize is that you don't strike out very much if you don't get to 2 strikes. But Oneil Cruz has hit with 2 strikes over 60% of his at-bats. It's a lot. So, if you're hitting with 2 strikes that often, then you're going to punch out a lot more. It's just going to happen.
Well, that's what the swing and miss will do, though. Yeah, if you're not making contact early in the count.
So I think the key for him is this, as we start moving to this next step of the All-Star break, is understand pitch selection. What does he want to get his swing off on? Is he still, if he's looking to go the other way early in the counts, that's a good thing. Because then he can work backwards a little bit, and now all of a sudden he might not be hitting with 2 strikes as often. So I like to see him continue to grow versus right-handed pitching because the left-handed approach is really good.
It is.
It has been really solid. And then I think he has to work some way back to understanding, okay, what do I want to accomplish and what is my hitting area that I'm going to get my swing off consistently on? And so that type of focus has me believing that he'll increase that OPS over the rest of the season.
Big guys, long lever guys, you're kind of a big guy.
I'm a long lever.
Yeah, you got long levers. So guys like that, a lot of times you talk about they need to get out front, right? Because you have those long arms. You got to make sure that the barrel's out through the zone. Oneil Cruz is kind of different in the fact that he's got such fast hands as well. So this is something I kind of fight against a lot when I think about the way he hits, okay? Because you say early in the count, you want to know what he's doing. So maybe an approach going to left field against righties would be a good idea. It does seem like against righties, it's almost like he's too comfortable, right? And so he doesn't have the same urgency that he does against lefties in going the other way. I want to see Oneil Cruz swing at pretty much everything in the zone, personally.
See, and that's the thing. Like, if you watch it, the perfect example would be this road trip. Like, if you look at him leading off, he swung at the first pitch almost every time this whole road trip. So he was being aggressive early, but it goes back to saying, all right, what is it that I'm actually looking for? Am I really focused in on that first pitch? Am I timing right? And so I see it, the left-handed part, where I see he's so confident. Like, I mean, when he gets to 2 strikes with a lefty, it's like, I mean, it's
easier.
It is. I mean, but he gets to 2 strikes so often against the righties because he's swinging through pitches and fouling them off. That is my concern when it comes to that part, because it's like, I don't want you fouling off good pitches out over the plate, because that's how you get to 2 strikes, right? And so that's what we're trying to combat against. So the focus and intent has to be a little more tighter when it comes to the right-hand pitching and trying to work in that area, because we've seen Oneil Cruz hit balls that are this far off the plate away to pull side, for home runs for a long way. So he has that in him no matter what. I think that'll be the key.
I like the idea of him. We always talk about, guys, we want to keep that approach to the opposite side gap or stay up the middle, so you're not pulling off the ball. It does seem like against righties, he's pulling off the ball quite a bit.
Yes.
And that's the main thing for me. It seems like he's trying to turn and burn, which I understand, right? And I don't fault him for that. And I don't even think it's necessarily a bad thing. I just don't think he has to try to do it.
He doesn't.
Right? That's the big thing. So when we were in Texas, Michael and I went and did the pregame, postgame show in Texas and Milwaukee from the field, okay? So one of those games, my parents came, and they got these tickets down there on the first baseline, okay, down literally underneath the field. So it's just your head. It's like sitting in the dugout, basically. But we're sitting down the first baseline, and Oneil Cruz's first at bat comes up, and he's swinging. He's looking right at us. When he finishes, and my dad, who is a baseball purist, that's immediately first swing. He just goes, he's looking right at us when he's swinging at that pitch, and it's like, with the way that baseball is coached nowadays, and I understand it's different. You want to make sure they're going for, when you do hit the ball, you should be hitting it very hard. Right. And Oneil Cruz is like the poster child of that, right? The thing for me is that he doesn't need to try to make that happen.
No.
Right?
And what it allows you to do, and you tapped on it right there, it's the head and the eyes. I mean, when you have focus, your head and your eyes, they go down to the bat. Now, the perfect example would be to watch Brandon Lau take batting practice. Watch him hit. I mean, you can't say anything else other than the head is limited movement, and the head is always down at the point of contact.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm telling Oneil Cruz anything, I'm telling him to watch that and replicate that on every one of your swings, because that is the focus and intent, and you don't get that result. So it's just one of those things where, like I said, he doesn't need a lot. All he has to do is be able to just minimize some of that stuff, and then that OPS is going to fly up on the back end of this.
A question for you. How does Lau get so much power? It's a genuine question. He doesn't have a big leg kick. He's a small guy, and you go stand next to him, and he's smaller than you think. Yes. Even really, he is not a big guy, but he is consistently hit for power in the big leagues. Yes. And I've talked to multiple people about this. I've talked to Lau about this. And part of it is just that he's so good at getting the ball in the air to the pull side. And pretty much anybody who's in the big leagues, if you get the ball in the air to the pull side, you have a good chance because you have enough power to do it. But why does he generate so much power? Because his movement is so concise. It's so short, and it's just, is that it? Is that where the power is?
That's exactly where it is. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some things in there that are very unique to Brandon Lau, which is power, bat speed, angle, but it's all created by being optimal with his movement. I mean, every movement he has is efficient. It's not a lot of stuff going on. Like, a lot of guys have a big leg kick. The more your foot's in the air, the harder you have with timing. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So look at him. He's simplified in all steps that you want to be in. Like I said, the limited head movement, That means the ball doesn't jump up on top of you because you're allowing the ball to come to you in everything you do. Big head movements, your heads are going. I mean, it's just his efficient movement around the baseball coming to him. When it's time to swing, it's just him and the barrel and the ball. And I think that's, like I said, there's a lot to learn from these guys that we have acquired. That'll be the number one thing I would point out when it comes to him. When it comes to Ryan O'Hearn, I've talked about that front shoulder on lefties. I mean, you have veteran guys that can teach and coach up somebody way to support your coaching staff as well.
So it's usually harder for a lefty to keep the shoulder in against a left-handed pitcher, right? We've seen that. That was what Oneil Cruz was doing the last few years, right? I mean, whenever a lefty would come and you see that shoulder start to leak, right? You start to open up. But now we're seeing the opposite, and Ryan O'Hearn does the exact same thing. It's like it's almost too much, right? You can really see how much effort is going into keeping that shoulder turned in. Does that kind of swing work against a righty? Could Oneil Cruz take the same approach and keep that shoulder drastically turned in the way he does against the lefty and still be effective?
I think he can. It depends on, obviously, the setup, the matchup, the pitcher. I mean, is this pitcher good on the inside third of the plate? I think that makes a big difference. If it's a guy that can't really get in there consistently for strikes, then yeah, I think so. But I do believe I'm not a big component of really getting that front shoulder, cranked in a lot because you have to clear so much space. And you talked about the long levers, right? So if he has to make contact out here, it's kind of hard to do when you start getting rotational. But I do believe that it's those minimal moves that, as long as he can recognize that and recognize where he wants his hitting space to be, I think that really helps him out more. So it's subtle movements. It's not drastic movements at this stage in the game for a lot of these guys. I mean, they're professional major league hitters. They have a pretty good idea of what they want to do. Now you just got to help them execute it.
We know last year Cruz really struggled in the second half of the season. He had an okay May, June, July. They were fine, but not really what we've seen him do in the past. Okay, so 2 years ago we saw Cruz turn it up those last 2 months of the season. Last year we saw him really fall off. This year Oneil Cruz started off really hot. He has struggled for a little while now. But do you think there is anything he can do specifically to find that success he had in 2024 in the back half of the season? Is there anything he maybe did that year that he could bring this year? Or, what happened last year? There's so many questions about this. Let me focus you. That was a lot. Let me focus that for a second. So this year, Oneil Cruz is looking to push, obviously. You said you think that OPS is going to be higher than it is now at the end of the season. How does he do that when teams are now going to be knowing how he's attacking the ball and they know that he's doing better against lefties? We're even seeing, Tony Vitello didn't bring in the lefty to face him.
You're right.
So what does he have to do now to try to get to that point where he's more consistent for the rest of the year?
Honestly, the only thing Oneil Cruz really needs to do is just pay attention to details and focus. And all the rest of the stuff will take care of itself. You have the best situation for him when you have a Brandon Lau hitting behind you, or you have, O'Hearn hitting in front of you, and you have traffic on the base pass, or you have, all these kind of things are already going to help all these, you know what I mean? So you don't have to do much more. You don't feel like you have to carry the weight like him and Brian Reynolds kind of had to do last year offensively. You kind of saw how that played out for both of their seasons. And so I think if anything else, it's always going to be about focus and details for Oneil Cruz. If he can get the same type of focus every play, never take a pitch off, offense, defense, or base running, that's the next step for him in his maturation process. I mean, it's time for him to be that guy. And if he can do that, I mean, we've already seen what he can do. He can carry a ball club for an entire week. If you really want to get down to it, he can do it for a month because he is that type of talent. And you can't pitch around him because you have guys like Brandon Lau or stolen base attempts or everything else that he can beat you with.
Okay, so is he your leadoff hitter the rest of the year?
I don't know that he is. I really would like to see him continue to get the at-bats, make the necessary adjustments, and then once it starts flowing a different way, you may see another young up-and-coming bucko at the bottom of the lineup kind of creep his way up a little bit too, because he's made some tremendous strides. I mean, tremendous strides. And it's been fun to watch him grow. There's a couple plays that happened on this road trip that I don't think people noticed, but I definitely noticed.
I mean, he got play. Connor Griffin maybe graduating up to the first spot of the order eventually. But you have some graduates that you want to give some shout-outs to.
I did. Yes, a special congratulations to my daughter, Caden and Kylie. Caden, she's graduating from Cal Poly Pomona, and so that'll be this Saturday.
Major?
And then kinesiology. And then Kylie, she's graduating from high school on the 21st, and she's going to University of Arizona for nursing. So,
Cool.
so a lot of stuff going on in May. Pocket's a little light these days.
Where did they get their brains from?
I don't
know.
You know it wasn't me.
Yeah, I know it was you. It's
But
all
I can
right.
hit a slider
Yeah,
though.
there you go. That's all that matters.
No one destroys a baseball like Oneil Cruz.
That is the hardest hit ball in known Major League history.
Pitchers should consider themselves warned.
And it is gone! There's a Cruz missile!
Log in with your cable provider and stream the Pirates all season long on SNP 360.
Okay, so let's transfer a little bit. We talked about the starting rotation to start. We talked about the offense. Let's talk about the bullpen, okay? Because the bullpen started out in the year. It was a huge strength for this team. It was so good. But I'm just going to throw it out there. Used a ton, okay? And that's not something that is under the radar. Everybody knows this. But what I don't think people understand are the effects that this has on a bullpen throughout a season.
Yes.
It's not just that at the end of the season this is going to become a problem. It becomes a problem when you come in on a given day as bullpen guy, you've thrown a lot over the last few weeks, and you feel totally fine. You feel just the same as you felt for the last month, and you've been doing really, really well.
Right.
And you go out that day, and your command is just not there.
Right.
The break on your slider is just not quite there. The zip on your fastball, the velocity might be the same,
Right.
but it doesn't feel the same to those hitters coming out of your hand, right? I've been there. We've all been there. If you're a pitcher, you know what that feels like, where you can't put a pinpoint on what is wrong, but something is wrong.
Something's not right.
Exactly. And so I think that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Look, it's an unfortunate situation because at the beginning of the year, the bullpen was such a strength and the starters were not going as deep into games. Now the starters have been going more consistently deep in games. And so the bullpen guys are getting these innings in higher leverage situations later in games, which is a good thing, except when they fail, it's a lot more obvious,
Yes.
right? So I want to go over a few guys that we have been seeing kind of struggle who are really good at the beginning of the season and kind of want to go over why this might happen. All right. So I got 4 guys for you. All right. I'm going to start with Yohan Ramirez.
Okay.
All right. So Yohan Ramirez was the #1 story in the month of April out of the bullpen because the guys who we knew were going to be good were good, and they were obviously good performances. But Yohan Ramirez kind of came out of nowhere and was the team savior for a month.
Yes.
Okay. So now he's had some struggles over his last few outings. There's no doubt in my mind. If you go look at his numbers from years before, okay, he's played on like 30 different teams. He's been playing for a while. However, he has never thrown anywhere near the amount of appearances in April. He used to be a starter, so he has thrown more innings in April in the minor leagues, but he had 14 appearances before the end of April. He had 19 2/3 innings before the end of April out of the bullpen. 14 appearances, and so many of those are multiple innings.
So again, carrying the weight, right? And it's going to have its effects at some point. And so that's maybe what you're seeing right now. And I may be quite sure it is,
definitely.
and so, you just bounce back. You try to give him a little time. And that's something that we definitely have to do because he has been that guy that's picked up a lot of those pieces. And as we said before, there's nothing better than having a guy that you can come in and get quality outs, get the ball on the ground, get the strikeout, the swing and miss when he's on. Right. And he is electric when he is on, just like a lot of those guys out of that pen. But for me, I think I agree with you 100%. How do you get him back in the mix? One is going to be give him some rest. I mean, obviously, he's going to need that. I mean, you want this next part building up into the All-Star break, you're going to need that young man to go out and continue to eat up those innings out of that pen when he needs to and do it effectively. And the stuff is it's good, So the only problem you have is command. And he hasn't shown that he's until this road trip where it was just blatantly out of the mix. But I think he's one of those guys that just give him a little bit of a rest, and I think you'll see a better part of him later.
I'm going to throw this at you. I think he's used too much.
Mm-hmm.
I think Yohan Ramirez should always be a multiple inning guy. Mm-hmm. And if that means you use him less, but you never bring him in when you need one inning. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If he ends up throwing one inning, it's because he threw the 10th inning and then you ended up scoring and not needing him, right? Mm-hmm. That's the way I think that Yohan Ramirez is going to be best used. He is good in the multiple inning thing, in multiple inning stints, and more importantly, it seems like he thrives in those situations. Right. And that's such an important role to have now in bullpens where starting pitchers don't go as long.
Let me ask you this, though. Yeah. Are you bringing him in a clean inning, or are you bringing him in with
clean inning? Every time.
Okay.
Every time.
Yep.
I don't want him ever worrying about having to command.
Right.
Like, and we did see him come in some big situations. I'm not saying that was wrong to do.
He created those big situations.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think that a guy like Yohan Ramirez, I don't want him to be worried about his command. Right? Let him strike people out and walk people. That's fine. Yeah. Hit people. It's more efficient. Let it be his cleaning. Yeah. Okay. So next, let's go to the end. Okay. All right. Let's go to Dennis Santana.
Okay.
All right. Dennis Santana is a different problem. Mm-hmm. He has thrown a decent amount of innings in his career throughout the beginning of seasons. Okay. Mm-hmm. The difference is that he has gotten to the point now where he has nothing to get the swing and miss. Mm-hmm. None of his pitches have been good swing and miss recently. Mm-hmm. And last year, the slider was a great pitch. I mean, he's gone this year to a 21% whiff rate when last year was at 28. Right. That's a huge 7% is a huge jump. Mm-hmm. So I go try to find out why that might be. Right.
All right, I got one for you too. So tell me what you think.
So I'm going to go a little bit more what do you call it? Like in depth on the release point. Mm-hmm. Okay. His release height this year is a little bit lower. Okay. His arm angle is the same, but he's releasing a little bit lower and he's releasing a little bit further out horizontally. So that means that he's gonna be landing more closed and kind of throwing against his body. Mm-hmm. I think that's killed a lot of his depth on his pitches, right? The difference on his pitches.
We'll hear that word again because one of the guys also want to talk about. But I tell you the other thing, and you're spot on with that. The other thing that I look at too is a lot of times we can look at the pitcher, look at a lot of the details of that, but we forget about the opponents. And the Pirates have played one of the toughest schedules with some of the better hitters in the league as well. So that may be the difference between the whiff percentages too. Now, like I said, you look at some other things, maybe it'll look a little different, but it is always a combination of things. The two things can be true.
That's true.
So I'll give him a little slack right now because it's only the first quarter. Now we're going into the second quarter.
I also just want to let it be known, still, he has only given up runs in 3 of his 17 appearances this year. So, this is one of those things where we kind of freak out a little too much about stuff. Right. All right, next. One of the better stories who has struggled recently is Isaac Mattson. Yeah. Right? So we saw Mattson really come into his own last year, and this year he gets that big leverage. Hey, you got 7th. Let's see what you got. Roll with it kind of idea. And he has thrown a ton. Okay, so he had 19 appearances. All right? That is a lot of appearances. And a guy who basically rides on his fastball being effective, if that loses any of its zip, it's easy to say, okay, his last outing, he gave up some runs because he threw the ball down the middle. He throws the ball down the middle all the time, but it doesn't get hit because it's got that extra zip. So right now, to me, that's just a little bit of a dip. Yes. That's it. That's all I got.
So I will say this. As a hitter, when you know now, because now this is his second season in the league, and you know for a fact that you're going to get 90% fastballs. Like that, and when you go into the plate, like that was, and that's your approach. I mean, I was super curious to see how effective he will be this year anyway. And so you get fastball hitting teams, certain guys, and I love our catchers because they basically read swings too, right? I mean, that's what they do. You have a couple guys on this road trip, took some pretty good swings at that fastball, and they were dead red fastball guys, 0-0 for sure. Yeah. And they'll tell you if they can catch up to it or if they're seeing it right. And then, like I said, those are the type of things you'll look for towards the rest of the season. Well, guys that are that are dead red fastball hunters, and is he still getting that fastball where he wants to, the top of the zone? When it's at the top of the zone, I haven't seen too many people, turn it around. But like you said, he missed down in the middle of the zone with it. with some pretty good hitters when we were in San Francisco, and they
That's
did
true.
not miss it.
Well, okay, 3 of 19 appearances this year, he has given up at least a run.
Yeah.
So still,
Yeah, still.
16 zeros,
Balling.
right? Once again, he's all right. Just a bit of a downturn right now. Also, I will say, Cam Schlittler with the Yankees, he's a starter throwing 90% fastballs right now.
That's crazy.
Isn't that? And he's had a great year so far. Insane.
Crazy.
All right, and the last guy that we want to bring up, and this one is hard for me because it actually, I believe, has something to do with how he's throwing than anything else, is Justin Lawrence.
Okay. Yep.
So, look, Justin Lawrence in his career, it's easy to say that we were a little bit overzealous because of the performance we saw last year as to what we were going to get this year, right? He only played the very beginning and the very end of the season last year, and he was virtually unhittable. Okay, so now this year he's rolled out there. We want you to be a high leverage inning type of guy, and he has not been effective in those roles this year. And so there's been a little bit of back and forth as to why that's happening, especially with Michael and I, because we talk about this all the time. And so I go in and I look at stuff, and there's one glaring thing that really stands out.
What is it?
Okay. So when he throws last year, you go look at his numbers, the way he threw, he tunneled incredibly well.
There we go.
Okay. His release point on all of his pitches was very, very similar. All right. This year,
let me guess.
his fastballs, he has dropped down a ton, and his breaking ball, it's not that he was even at the same place. His breaking ball, he's moved up.
Wow.
So he went from throwing all of his pitches here to now throwing his pitches like this.
Okay.
Right?
So I'm glad this is the one guy I wanted to talk about for sure, because I think it's two things with him. That one obviously is one of them, because when you're talking about depth, like for me as a hitter, okay, so what is going to make him super effective, or one that I don't want to hit off of, especially if I'm right-handed, is a guy that can throw a four-seam fastball on the inside part of the plate and his two-seamer in that same area. So that's just filthy, because he has a really good fastball from that arm angle. And so, but the thing is with his sweeper, because the sweeper is so, it covers so much room, you almost have to start that pitch behind to get it in the zone. And so if it's not thrown behind me, then I already know that, like I said, it's not going to be a strike. If it's thrown anywhere in the middle, so it really cuts off the space for him to be successful, and I think that has a lot to do with, maybe the command has a lot to do with what you're talking about. Actually, I know it does, because we watched it. But and the second part of him is just understand how good his stuff is. He has to know that. That's more of a confidence thing more than anything. And as soon as he grabs the ball and knows that, like his last outing, a little unfortunate, got a couple of unfortunate breaks, And I mean, but it can turn on you fast when you don't have that buildup in you. You haven't had that area of consistency of being positive and working through some stuff. And so I still believe that that's going to be one of the guys we'll definitely lean on come the second part of the season as well. He's just going to continue to build off and figure out what we're talking about. But it is a confidence thing for him. And I also think what you just said may be the culprit of why he doesn't have the type of command. But I'll tell you, that fastball, when he's able to put that thing inside, I mean, it changes your demeanor as a hitter. Yeah. It makes that sweeper that more.
Well, so what's interesting for me is, as a pitcher, right? When I threw a sinker and a four-seamer, right? But I'm a left-handed. I have to get myself on the camera. I'm doing right-handed. Okay, so when I threw a sinker, I did try to get a little bit more on the side of the ball, okay? But the truth is, I only threw sinkers to lefties,
right?
Because my four-seam fastball was what I felt way more comfortable with.
Don't never forget the Colorado start.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go. So, like, for me, it was okay, because I really barely ever threw those pitches to the same hitter.
Right.
But when you're throwing if you want your combination to be either four-seam and sweeper or sinker and sweeper, which he's going to use both sides, they need to look the same. Right. And one of the things that makes it a little bit more difficult for me is I don't know exactly what happened, why this would change. But his sweeper actually does have more movement than it did last year. And his sinker actually has more movement than it did last year. And so to me, that sounds like there was some pitch shaping going on, working on getting your pitches nastier, and it worked. It worked. And so then you fall in love with it, right? But sometimes adding an
That's not-
inch
yeah, that-
isn't what's going to make you better.
That's why I said it's the exact opposite of what he needs, because now the sweeper is covering so much room. It's like you can't land it for a strike. You got to hope the guys are chasing, but it's moving so. Like if it's moving like this, I mean, it's one thing. When it's moving like that, it's like, I mean, there's no way to land that to a chase.
Yeah.
You can't even get the chases that you typically would get, and so that's why I said, I mean, it's a tough one. I'm sure it's something he's going to figure out. Because like I said, the stuff, it's not comfortable. It's not a comfortable bat when he's locked in. And I just, you just want him to know that.
Right.
You want him to know that.
Okay, so overall, the bullpen's been really good. We're going to talk about it a lot on the pregame show today. Well, it'll be yesterday by the time this podcast comes out. But the lefties have been really, really good. Soto, Montgomery, Sisk. It's been a lot of fun to watch what they've been doing. We know these arms have been used a ton at the beginning of the season. So I think a lot of that is just, this is a dip. Unfortunately, it seems like Matson, Ramirez, and Santana especially are all going through a dip at the same time.
So I got a question for you.
Yeah.
With all that going on, the one thing that we say that we could probably do better as we move forward the second quarter is, can our pitchers continue to start that trend? Remember, it all started with Mitch Keller Friday night, that home game, when we needed to get off that 5-game losing streak or whatever it was. Oh, yeah. And he just went up there and did it. And he pitched deep in the game. And then you remember what happened after that. Guys, all of a sudden started pitching a little deeper, more efficient. Can they start doing that now to pick up their bullpen?
Right.
Because the bullpen has picked them up in areas, until they got their build up. So now it's their time to maybe start stretching it out into the 7th inning. Maybe that is the rally cry behind what we're doing. And maybe that will allow us to have those type of winning streaks that we are talking about earlier, this alluded to.
Sorry, I also realized I wasn't saying it was a 7-game losing streak. I know. Went 7.
Yeah. Because I was like, 7? Was it that many?
Oh, my gosh. No, man, we're still not going under 500. All right, last segment we got here today. We always end it with Bucs on Deck, talking about some young buccos coming up in the system. The number one story in the Pirates minor leagues this year has been the draft, number 9 draft pick, number 6 draft pick from last year, Seth Hernandez, has been absolutely unbelievable. So they said, hey, kid, let's go on up. He moves up to high A Greensboro, which is going to be a great test because it's a terrible place to pitch, but it doesn't really matter that much when nobody ever hits the ball.
I was going to say, it's a terrible place to hit for somebody facing him.
Exactly.
It's a terrible place to pitch if you don't have his stuff. And he does have some.
Take a look at those numbers. I mean, 50 strikeouts in 28 innings, the .96 ERA in his 6 games started in low A, and he's 19 years old. He looks fantastic. It's so fun to watch him pitch. The question that our producer put on here is what impresses you the most about him? And everybody likes to go with, oh, he's so mature and he handles himself like a big leaguer. Dude, he is so nasty.
Yeah,
it
was like,
that's the most impressive thing is that he has 4 pitches that are all plus, including a plus changeup and a plus, maybe even a third plus fastball. Then he's also throwing the slider and curveball, which everybody was kind of like, well, we're not really sure about the breaking balls, and they came out, he worked on them, and he's got them nasty.
Well, I will say this. I'll put this out here, and I said it before. When you think about the pitching staff that we have right now, can you think about a better opportunity if you're going to have a guy developing to get around this group?
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying this year, but I'm just saying the sooner that happens, now you really have some young guns for real with like I said, the tutorship of Mitch Keller, his presence, all that stuff. It's like, that's why you get excited, because you have a bunch of dynamic players. You look at Oneil Cruz, dynamic. You look at Connor Griffin, dynamic. Paul Skeens, dynamic pitchers. Bubba Chandler, dynamic arm. Jared Jones, hopefully coming back, dynamic arms. So it's a lot of dynamic type of impact players all on one team, and they're all young. That's crazy.
We don't see many American pitchers at a high school come up when they're, let's say, 20 years old, right? It's just not something that happens very often. Connor Griffin, think about this, okay? Seth Hernandez is 19 right now, and he's in high A, and he's dicing up. He diced up low A, okay, and that's great. But Connor Griffin's in the big leagues, right?
Impacting,
right? And so it's so crazy to put that into perspective as to how special Connor Griffin is. But if Seth Hernandez keeps doing what he's doing, if he does this for a full year, just like Connor Griffin did in his full year last year, right? Pitching is different. It's always regarded as different. Is there any way that Seth Hernandez gets the same treatment if he just keeps dicing up, going up levels this year in the minor leagues?
Well, the most beautiful thing about that question is the game will let you know. And I think, honestly, the one thing that I thought about, and everybody's going to go crazy when I say this, but just think about the Pirates getting down to the last, month of the season, or think about what does the staff look like and the bullpen look like, and what do we need?
100 with a banger breaking ball. And
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just saying, I mean, these are the type of things that when you talk about winning and making winning your focus, it looks different than all the other stuff. Now, all of a sudden, the concepts and thought process and all that stuff, the paperwork, the computers, all that, what winning looks like. And if you have an opportunity to do some big things late in the season, you never know what the team needs. You might already have it.
You might already have it right there. Levels down. So it's a fun question. Our producer, Nick Belsky, great job setting up the show today.
Thank you, Nick.
So he asked the question, have you ever seen a draft or a team have a 3-year draft window as successful as what the Pirates look to have right now? You had Paul Skeens, then you had Connor Griffin, then you had Seth Hernandez. Okay, those are your first-round picks 3 years in a row.
That's special.
So I did some research.
Let me see. Who did you come up with?
So I tried to find something I could compare to this. I think I actually found a pretty good one.
Washington?
Yes,
Yeah.
2009, 10, and 11. Great guess. Steven Strasburg in 2009, Bryce Harper in 2010, and then it's funny because what he's become now, but 2011 was Anthony Rendon, who was unbelievable. When he was at the Nationals, he was like my least favorite guy to face because he just hit everything all the time. Okay, so he ends up signing a $300 million deal with the Angels. Ironically, two of those guys, Strasburg in Washington and Rendon in Anaheim, in Los Angeles Angels, end up being maybe the worst contracts of that organization's history because of what ended up happening with those players. However, you put those three back to back, and not only it's fun because it's very close. Paul Skeens and Steven Strasburg, very close comp. Bryce Harper came up when he was 19 years old. Connor Griffin came up when he was 19 years old. And then to have the Rendon and Hernandez is just two players that you don't think of as much because they're not as much in the forefront. And obviously, we haven't seen what Seth Hernandez can do yet. But in 2019, two of those players were on that team that won the World Series. That is what you're looking at here.
I know, and that does set you some type of bar to look at. And so many times, as Pittsburgh fans, you want to have hope, and you're just trying to force yourself to have it. It's here. Like I said, I think this, if you're not going to do anything or say anything about it, that pitching staff gives you enough hope. When you know you can acquire offense and you can do the things that we were able to do this offseason, I think that says a lot. And so every game is a fun game. Now, we just need to run some streaks together.
Yes. Many wins together would be nice. All right, well, that's going to do it for us here on Bucs Bounty. From Kevin Young, Stephen Brault, our producer, Nick Belsky. Please like, follow, subscribe. You can watch us anywhere or listen to us anywhere you get your podcasts. Watch us at SportsNet Pittsburgh on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us here on Bucs Bounty, and we will see you next week.